Picture this. You're sitting at your kitchen table on a Tuesday night, laptop open, and you're staring at a payment confirmation screen. The number in the balance field reads 0. Not $200, not $47, 0. And for a second, your brain doesn't know what to do with that information. You've been making payments on this thing so long that the due date was practically a biological reflex. The second Tuesday of every month, without thinking, you'd log in, feel that familiar low-grade dread, make the payment, and close the tab before your brain could do the math on how many more times you'd have to do this. And now it's done. And here's the part nobody tells you about. You don't feel what you thought you'd feel. You thought it would feel like winning something. Instead, it feels like putting down a weight you'd carried so long you forgot you were carrying it. That's not a metaphor. That's neuroscience. And by the end of this, you're going to understand exactly what your brain is doing in that moment. Why eliminating debt creates a psychological transformation that no income increase can replicate, and what the mathematics of your life actually look like on the other side. Let me start with something that sounds completely unrelated, but will make perfect sense in about 3 minutes. In the early 1970s, a psychologist named Walter Mischel ran an experiment at Stanford that became one of the most cited studies in the history of behavioral science. He sat children down in a room with a single marshmallow on a table and told them they could eat it now, or if they waited 15 minutes without eating it, or they'd get 2 marshmallows. Then he left the room. The footage of these kids is almost painful to watch. Some grabbed the marshmallow immediately. Others covered their eyes. Some turned their backs to it. A few sniffed it, licked it, and put it back. What Mischel found over the following decades was that the children who waited, who chose delayed gratification over immediate reward, consistently showed better life outcomes across almost every measurable dimension. They had higher test scores, better health, more stable relationships, and significantly higher incomes. Now, here's what nobody talks about when they reference the marshmallow study. The children who waited weren't naturally more disciplined. The research showed something far more interesting. And the kids who successfully delayed gratification had developed a specific psychological skill. They had learned to reframe the present moment. Instead of sitting there white-knuckling their way through the discomfort of not eating the marshmallow, they mentally shifted their attention to the future reward. They made the future more vivid than the present temptation. This is exactly what happens when you pay off debt. Except you've been playing the marshmallow game for years. And the moment you make that last payment, you don't just get the second marshmallow. You get a neurological reset that permanently changes how your brain processes financial decisions. And most people have no idea this is coming. Here's what's actually happening in your brain when you carry debt. And there's a region called the amygdala, the part of your brain responsible for threat detection and fear responses. And it treats financial obligation the same way it treats physical danger. A bill you can't pay triggers the same stress response as a predator in your peripheral vision. Your cortisol spikes. Your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for long-term planning and rational decision-making, gets partially suppressed. You become, measurably, a worse decision-maker when you're under financial stress. Not because you're less intelligent, because your brain is operating in threat response mode, and threat response mode is not designed for strategic thinking. It's designed for survival. This is why people in debt so often make financial decisions that look irrational from the outside. They take out payday loans at 400% interest. They cash out retirement accounts at a penalty. They buy things they can't afford because the dopamine hit of a purchase temporarily quiets the anxiety the debt is generating. It's not stupidity. It's neurobiology. Your brain is trying to manage unbearable discomfort using the only tools it has available in the moment. But here's what's wild. The debt doesn't even have to be large to produce this effect. Research from the American Psychological Association consistently shows that the stress response is correlated less with the actual size of the debt and more with the psychological weight of obligation. A $4,000 credit card balance can create the same cortisol elevation as a $40,000 balance, depending on the person's relationship with money and their perceived ability to control the situation. The brain doesn't process dollars, and it processes threat levels. And any debt you feel you can't control reads as threat. Now let me show you the mathematics, because this is where people's assumptions completely fall apart. Most people think about debt in terms of monthly payments. They ask, can I afford the payment? And if the answer is yes, they sign the contract. But thinking in monthly payments is the single most effective way the financial industry has ever invented to obscure the true cost of borrowing. Let me show you why. Take a guy named Marcus. He's 28 years old. He makes $64,000 a year. He has 3 debts. A car loan with $11,400 remaining at 6.9% interest. A credit card with $7,200 at 22.4% interest. And a personal loan with $4,800 at 14.1% interest. Total debt, $23,400. His combined minimum payments are $680 per month. If he pays minimums only, he will spend the next 4.3 years making payments and pay a total of approximately $34,900 to eliminate $23,400 in principal. He will donate $11,500 to financial institutions for the privilege of spending money he already spent. That $11,500 isn't a fee. It's not a service. It's the cost of consuming in the present and paying in the future. It's the price of the first marshmallow. But here's the number that should stop you cold. That same $680 per month, invested from age 28 at a conservative 7% annual return, for the 4.3 years it would have been servicing debt, becomes approximately $42,000 by the time Marcus is 60. He didn't just pay $11,500 in interest, he sacrificed $42,000 in future wealth. The real cost of his debt wasn't $23,400. It was $23,400 plus $11,500 in interest, plus $42,000 in lost compounding. The total cost of that debt, measured in what it actually took from his financial future, is closer to $76,900, from $23,400 in principal. That's the number nobody puts on the loan document. This is what behavioral finance researchers call the hidden future cost of present consumption. Every dollar you owe today has a compound shadow that follows it into your future. The debt you can see on your statement is the smallest version of what that debt actually costs you. Now here's where the psychology gets genuinely interesting, because this is the part that changes everything. There's a concept in behavioral psychology called cognitive load. Think of your brain like a computer processor. When it has too many tasks running simultaneously, everything slows down. Performance degrades. Background processes eat resources you need for the primary task in front of you. Debt creates a cognitive load that you carry constantly, whether you're consciously thinking about it or not. Every time you make a purchase decision, some fraction of your mental processing power is silently running the debt calculation in the background. Can I afford this, given what I owe? If I spend here, can I still make the payment this month? If something goes wrong, am I exposed? This background process never fully shuts off. It runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. quietly consuming mental resources you need for the decisions that actually shape your life. The moment you make your last payment, that background process terminates, and the cognitive resources it was consuming become available. This is why people consistently describe paying off their debt not just as financial relief, but as mental clarity, like fog lifting, like being able to think in a straight line for the first time in years. They're not being dramatic. They're describing an actual neurological event. The suppression of the threat response loop releases prefrontal cortex capacity that was being partially commandeered by financial stress. You literally become more capable of long-term thinking the moment your debt goes to zero. And here's what that restored capacity makes possible. Research from Santander's Consumer Finance Division found that people who became completely debt-free, eliminating all non-mortgage consumer debt, increased their monthly savings rate within 6 months by an average of 340%. Not 34%, 340%. They didn't get raises. They didn't change jobs. They didn't receive inheritances. And they simply stopped sending money to creditors and redirected it toward themselves. The money was always there. The debt was consuming it. Let me give you the real numbers on what this looks like in practice. Go back to Marcus. He's paying $680 per month in debt service. If he uses the debt avalanche method, attacking the highest interest rate balance first, while paying minimums on the rest, he can eliminate all 3 debts in 37 months instead of 52, and pay approximately $4,200 in total interest instead of $11,500. He saves $7,300 in interest just by changing the order of payments. But here's the transformation that happens after those 37 months. Marcus now has $680 per month that belongs entirely to him. If he takes that $680 and invests it beginning at age 31, contributing consistently for 30 years at 7% annual returns, he accumulates approximately $818,000 by age 61. From $680 a month, the same $680 that was disappearing into minimum payments. The math didn't change. The destination of the money changed. That's the number. That's what debt costs you. Not the balance on the statement. Not even the interest. It's the $818,000 that $680 a month becomes when it's working for you instead of against you. Now, here's where most people make the critical mistake. And I want to be very specific about this because it's the difference between people who pay off debt and stay paid off, and people who pay off debt and recreate it within 18 months. The psychological event of paying off debt is so powerful that it temporarily overrides rational financial thinking. You made the last payment. The anxiety is gone. The background process shut down. And your brain, which has been deprived of dopamine rewards for years of disciplined payment making, suddenly wants to celebrate. And the celebration that feels most natural, the one that advertising and culture and your social environment have been conditioning you toward your entire life, is spending money. You deserve this. You earned this. You sacrificed so much. It's time to enjoy life again. This is the debt relapse pattern, and it's extraordinarily common. Studies on consumer debt behavior show that more than 60% of people who pay off credit card debt in full reaccumulate a significant balance within 2 years. Not because they're irresponsible, because they didn't understand that the freedom they'd just purchased required a behavioral identity, not just a financial balance. And the people who stay debt-free don't white-knuckle their way through the temptation to spend. They do something much more effective. They redirect the psychological energy that was fueling their debt payoff directly into wealth building. The discipline, the sacrifice, the delayed gratification, all of it gets transferred to a new target. Instead of making the debt balance go down, they make the investment balance go up. The behavior is identical. The direction reverses. And because the wealth-building process generates the same psychological rewards, watching a number change in the direction you want it to go, the brain accepts the substitution. This is the identity shift that separates people who achieve financial freedom from people who achieve it temporarily and then undo it. And here are the 5 moves that matter most on the other side of zero. Move 1. Capture the payment before your lifestyle can. The morning after you make your last debt payment, set up an automatic investment transfer in the exact amount of your former debt payment. Not a portion of it, all of it. If you were paying $680 a month in debt service, move $680 automatically into an index fund or a retirement account on the same schedule those payments used to process. Your lifestyle has been operating without that money for years. You've already proven you can live without it. Don't give your spending patterns the chance to absorb it before your investment account can claim it. Move 2. Rebuild your emergency fund to full before doing anything else. Most people who are aggressively paying down debt partially drain their emergency fund to accelerate payments. This is often mathematically correct. The interest rate on the debt frequently exceeds what a savings account earns. But it means that the moment you become debt-free, you're financially exposed. A single emergency can force you back into borrowing before the ink is dry on your freedom. 3 to 6 months of expenses in liquid savings is not optional on the other side of debt. It's the structural protection that keeps you from undoing everything you built. Move 3. Redefine what you're optimizing for. When you're in debt, you optimize for debt elimination. You have a clear target, a monthly progress metric, and a finish line. This clarity is one of the reasons aggressive debt payoff works psychologically. It gives your brain a measurable game to win. The most common post-debt mistake is losing that clarity. You paid everything off and now you're just saving? Investing? For what? The absence of a specific target creates the vacuum that lifestyle inflation rushes to fill. Before you make your last payment, define the next goal with the same specificity you brought to debt elimination. A dollar amount, a timeline, a reason that matters to you personally. The goal replaces the debt as your optimization target, and your brain continues doing what it learned to do. Move 4. Understand the compounding math on the other side. When you were in debt, compounding was working against you. Every dollar you owed was generating interest that generated more interest. The debt was alive and growing whether you paid it or not. The moment you go to zero, you flip that mechanism. Now, every dollar you invest generates returns that generate more returns. The same exponential force that was consuming your future wealth is now building it. At $50,000 invested, a 7% annual return generates $3,500 a year, without a single additional contribution. That's money appearing in your account because you have money in your account. The machine that was running against you for years is now running for you. This is not a reward for good behavior. This is basic mathematics changing direction. Understanding this viscerally, not just intellectually, is what keeps people invested through market volatility, through economic uncertainty, through the moments when the numbers temporarily move in the wrong direction. Move 5. Let the identity become permanent. You are not someone who paid off their debt. You are someone who does not carry consumer debt. That's not a past tense achievement. It's a present tense identity. And the behavioral implication of that identity is that every future financial decision gets filtered through it, not as restriction, but as alignment. You don't buy a car you can't pay for in cash, or on a very short note because that's not who you are. You don't carry a credit card balance because that contradicts your identity. You don't make lifestyle purchases on borrowed money because your brain now processes that as regression, not reward. The identity does the heavy lifting that willpower cannot sustain. Here's the final thing I want you to understand. And this is the part that most financial content will never tell you directly. Debt is normalized in this culture to a degree that borders on pathological. The average American household carries over $21,000 in non-mortgage consumer debt, car payments, credit cards, personal loans, medical debt. The financial industry has spent billions of dollars and decades of sophisticated behavioral research making this seem like the natural state of adult life. Monthly payments are the unit of commerce. Credit scores, which measure your history of taking on and repaying debt, are sold back to you as measures of financial health. The system is not designed to make you debt-free. It is designed to make debt feel inevitable and manageable at a payment level you can survive. See, and the people who opt out of that system, who decide that zero is the only acceptable balance on a consumer debt, don't just get financial relief. They exit a structure that was permanently claiming a percentage of everything they would ever earn for the rest of their working life. They stop being a revenue stream for someone else's compound interest machine and become the operator of their own. The last payment isn't the end of something. It's the beginning of the only version of your financial life where the math is actually working in your favor. That weight you've been carrying, the low-grade dread, the background calculation, the cortisol that spikes on the second Tuesday of every month. When you finally put it down, you realize it was never supposed to be yours in the first place. And that is what hits different.